Hey friends, welcome back to the Great Epic YouTube channel. I'm currently sitting down in the belly of Motor Vessel Epic, which is our 1972 Bristol Offshore Trawler. Sitting behind me are these green monsters, which are Detroit 453 two-stroke marine diesel engines. And if you tuned into our last video, you would have saw that we had a little bit of a mechanical issue with this port side engine.
It smells like it's burning.
Right now. Right when we were about to drop the hook in Gulfport. We were looking forward to a nice weekend getaway for our 2-year wedding anniversary. We did have a lovely cruise from downtown St. Petersburg over to Gulfport, and so we were positioning ourselves for our spot to drop the hook in between a bunch of boats. It was blowing about 15 knots. Nothing too crazy, but it was still blowing a decent amount. Right when I throttled back, the port engine just took off. Luckily, I put it into neutral real quick so it didn't lurch us forward or take us backward, but it was screaming and my blood pressure was rising with it. God damn it. If you've ever experienced a runaway diesel engine, it is definitely an unnerving situation. There's a couple of reasons for why a diesel engine will run away. One of the ways, which is the scarier one and can lead to catastrophic failure, is when the engine essentially fuels itself with its own lube oil, and that's through a blown seal, typically with a turbo, which this engine does not have a turbo, so the likelihood of that happening was lower, which, if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments. This is the first time I've ever dealt with a runaway engine, so this is my first bit of experience there. The other way is through a fuel injection failure. A lot of the time it is apparently with a stuck fuel rack or injector rack, and it just keeps dumping fuel into one of or more of the injectors, causing the runaway, or you have a failure in the fuel governor. And if you are experiencing a runaway engine, you either want to shut the fuel off, or if it is an oil related issue or it's a fuel related issue, you can smother the air intake, or if your boat is equipped, which I know a lot of them are equipped with, an air intake cutoff or an air damper that you can shut the airflow off to the engine, and then that will ultimately shut it down. I've read stories about people just grabbing whatever they can in close proximity, a mop head or whatever, a rag or rags, and smother the air breather or air intake, cutting off the airflow to the engine and shutting it down. I just have to get away from these boats so I can anchor and I can get down there. Okay. And so I immediately ran down to the engine, leaving Jennifer up at the helm to just maneuver the boat with the starboard engine, not hit any boats or clip anybody's anchor lines or chains. And I came down immediately to the fuel governor to adjust the throttle linkage. Because I was thinking that that might have been the first thing that I could do, since I've had some issues with the throttle on this side, where we would have the boat out and the engine would slowly raise in RPM. Not a ton, but when we would come back to the dock, it would be idling at around 900 to 1,000 RPM, which is too high. You don't want to be going in and out of gear at too high of an RPM. Definitely not over 1,000 RPM. So I would adjust the throttle linkage, and that the engine would come back down to a normal idle. And so I thought that was the issue, so I went straight to that, adjusted the throttle linkage, and it did come down. It brought it down to about 1,500 RPM, so it came down substantially, but still not to my comfort level, especially since you can't go in or out of gear unless you want to destroy your transmission. So we were stuck using the starboard engine in 15 knots of wind, and this boat doesn't handle super great with one engine when it's set up for two. So I ran back up to the helm. I tried shutting the engine off because I have mechanical fuel shutoffs. There's a T-handle up there at the helm. You pull that, it shuts the fuel supply off to the engine. Engine wasn't shutting down. So I thought I had a fuel governor failure. But in that moment, I just needed to get far away from the boats, find our own spot, so that we could drop the hook and I could take my time figuring out the issue. I knew it wasn't going to be a catastrophic problem since I was able to lower the RPM So once we successfully anchored, came down here, and I just started looking around, trying to trace down what the issue could be. How could I shut the engine off? Now, the fuel filter is quite far up here. There's actually no valve, no shutoff valve close to the fuel filter. The fuel shutoff valve is way up on top of the fuel tank. So I shut that valve off, and even by shutting that valve off, it still takes a while for the engine to get starved of fuel. Once the engine started to slow down in RPM, I was able to manually pull the fuel shutoff here to shut the engine down. I did notice that when you pull that T-handle up at the helm to shut the engine off, it did engage the fuel shutoff on the fuel governor, but it wasn't shutting the engine down until I cut off the fuel supply to the engine. So thinking, what in the world is going on? It's got to be the fuel governor, right? Because this fuel governor over here looks like an original part. Over on the starboard side, this is definitely a newer part. So I'm thinking maybe this has happened before and the previous owners replaced the fuel governor on the starboard engine and hadn't experienced that issue on the port side, so it's got an original component. So I thought that was the issue. We're gonna have to take that off, have it rebuilt or replaced or whatever. So thought about it, looked into it, saw those things are pretty damn expensive. And so I ended up calling an old friend of mine who's a fantastic diesel mechanic, been using him for 14, 15 years now. When I got him on the phone, he knew immediately it was not the fuel governor. It had to have something to do with the fuel rack or injector rack, which could have been stuck or whatever. We don't know until you open up the valve cover. So he came over, we opened up the valve cover here, which has the fuel rack, which has fingers attached to that fuel rack, which deliver fuel to each of the injectors. And that fuel rack will bring those fingers outward or inward to open the fuel up or close it off. He immediately found that the set screws for those fingers were super loose.
The government was working one injector. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, that's awful. Looky here. You see?
All right, so what's going on?
Well, what happened here is somebody didn't do their job right, because now these things don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're at idle.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you go to shut the motor off, you're still in full fuel. See, it's not coming back. See, see right here. Look, see that's no fuel. Actually, this would be no fuel here.
Yeah.
So when you come in here like this and you go to shut it off, you're over half fuel. There you go.
So that shows what the problem was. All the components look nice and new, which makes sense because these engines were rebuilt in 2016, and the boat's been used pretty frequently, so the fuel rack should not have been stuck. So that's all it was, is those fingers were loose and not engaging in the right way. So we just tighten those up, set them into the right position by putting the engine into an idle position, and then you just adjust those fingers so they're sitting in the proper position. And we started the engine up, and voila, that was the problem. Now we have full control. The engine has never run better. And since that port side had that issue, we decided, while we're at it, let's open up the valve cover on the starboard side and adjust that side to make sure it doesn't happen to the starboard engine. A couple of those screws were a little loose, so probably was just a matter of time before the starboard side was going to have the same problem. So now that issue is fixed. We got super lucky. This never happens with a boat. Oh, I don't want to say never, because I've had some pretty simple fixes when I thought it was something major, but always go by the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. And a lot of people say boat just stands for break out another 1,000, but luckily it was nowhere near that. It's less than a few $100 in about 2 hours time, and this issue was fixed. So crisis averted. We're back in action. These babies are purring just fine, and we're super happy with the results of calling Zach over to help us out. And if you've ever experienced a runaway engine yourself, please let us know the story in the comments below. It's always very educational to hear what others have gone through, how they fixed it, what happened in the situation, because usually it happens out of nowhere and chaos typically ensues. So everybody's situation is different, and it would be great to hear what happened to you, why it happened, how you took care of the situation, and how you fixed the engine after it all settled down. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're enjoying the content, please give us a like, subscribe, share with your friends, drop a comment below. It really does go a long way, and it gives us enthusiasm to keep putting these videos out. We have a lot of content coming your way. Boat tours, DIY videos, lifestyle on the water, and then also we started a podcast series called Epic Stories, which goes in parallel with our YouTube videos, where we cover maritime disasters, shipwrecks, survivor stories, crazy stuff that happens at sea. Some of it you might know, but a lot you probably don't. We're really enjoying filming that series, so we hope you enjoy it as well. Please tune in, and we'll see you next time.